It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast. I hope your weekend is going well. We are up to June the 1st. That's a bit of a scary thing, isn't it? It almost seems like we've only not that long ago started 2025. Coming up in just a moment, we are going to be reflecting on some of the interviews that we have brought you over the last 7 days. We kicked it off with Peter Gavalis on Monday there in Perth. You know, the Perth property market, it is starting to change. Luxury is being redefined, which is what we discussed. Margaret Lomas is here. Now, she's talking about consents, getting consents from councils if you're looking at wanting to build a second dwelling on your property. If you have been told no from the council, don't take no as the final answer. You won't want to miss her piece of advice. Monique Bell in Atherton, we caught up with her on Wednesday and talked about this listener email that came in through from Olivia and Steve in Canberra. And it was all about how much money they suddenly got for their deposit on a property. And Jake McIntyre was here to round off our week. He has done what no other Tasmanian real estate auctioneer has achieved. He's become the first from the state to make the finals for the prestigious Australian Auctioneering Championship. So that is all coming up next. Have a great Sunday.
Grab your weekly dose of inspiration to help build a real estate portfolio. We talk to the best in the business every day. Learn from the professionals and know your property with us.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so we've seen a bit of a shift in the Perth market with really strong results in suburbs that we've never seen hit those prices before. I guess we're seeing a lot of suburb records in a lot of these areas, and it's purely based on the property itself. So people are putting more emphasis into the actual property rather than the area. Generally, they're coming in from looking at more expensive close-by suburbs and considering, well, this property ticks all our boxes. It's not an area that I've previously considered, but certainly prefer this, and it's the right price point too.
Yeah, because the buyers, they're now paying millions of dollars in areas like Palmyra and Trigg, previously considered fringe. So it's ever-changing.
Absolutely, yeah. So Trigg's always been a sort of a higher level price suburb, coastal, but we saw a recent sort of sale there for $6 million, and that wasn't even oceanfront. So people are paying premium for a good quality house and somewhere that's close to the beach with the ocean glimpses.
And this gentrification, which seems to be the buzzword at the moment, it really is shifting the urban fabric, raising questions about identity and accessibility, of course, because people are being moved on. Gentrification happens, gets a little bit more expensive. People have to go even more smaller into some of these areas that they wouldn't otherwise consider, which is obviously a little bit of a downsize for people that can't afford to live in those areas.
Yes, correct. So it has a twofold effect. Some people trying to buy in the area are getting priced out, but then others from adjoining suburbs with more budget coming in and pushing up those prices. The good thing for the area, though, I think, is seeing some bigger price points gives people more confidence in investing in that area. So, seeing quite a big sale in a particular area, and then people saying, well, I might build a house here because there is now evidence of a higher price sale, which also pushes up land prices as well, of course.
You say that you've been listeners for the last 12 months. Your property journey story is a unique one. You got back, you say, about a year ago after travelling around Europe for 2 years and found each other while working in a bar in London. You hatched a plan, you say, to save as much euro money so that you could put it towards a house to start a family. You thought that you had 2 years of savings left until something happened. Steve won lotto. No, not quite, but almost. Steve's auntie gifted you $100,000 to get you into your property now, and that is such a great positive energy story. Why don't we hear more stories like that from relatives who help out first home buyers if they've got the money to do so? I'll bet you anything that Steve's auntie, when you have that house warming, will probably have the biggest smile across her face. You would have no doubt had the parents contributing, but not so much in the wider family.
Yeah, look, I guess it's more typical that the parents are assisting, but it's great when you can have any sort of relative be able to help you and get you in that property market. And sometimes isn't necessarily putting the money towards a house deposit, but it might be just some money to help close existing loans, to help increase borrowing capacity. There's lots of different ways that I guess cash can assist you in your borrowing.
Yeah, that auntie, she's probably thought to herself, well, hang on, let's just look at the dollars and cents here. If they're not getting into their property for another 2 years, the market is going to move. It gets away on people, doesn't it? And what a gift to be able to say, look, don't pay those property prices in 2 years' time. Pay the price now, save the money, and you're in.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the increase in pricing, every time the RBA drops the rate, there's normally increase in pricing, increase in demand. So be able to have that cash to get in now when, they are predicting more RBA cash movements. It's a smart idea.
All right, well, let's have a look at these median house prices. Median snapshot for houses in Atherton, 480,000. That is up 3.2% over the last 12 months. Rental yield 4.9%, and those unit prices 389,000. Boy, that is interesting, eh? 29.2% rise in the last 12 months. So plenty of movement on those units.
Yeah, there's lots that has been happening in Atherton. Units especially quite sought after because there's not a lot up here, but with the prices, it's, ideal for first home buyers to get their foot in the market.
One of the ways to very quickly tackle the problem that we have with undersupply is to immediately address planning rules. And we are seeing some states and some areas, some local councils doing that straight away. And it's making a big difference. And a great example is development that I'm doing at the moment in Adelaide, where I had a house which was on a block that's around about 850 square metres. And typically in the past, there was a chance that I could divide that into two because I had a good wide access way down the side and build a second dwelling. But I really wanted to do more than that. I thought, why not be able to get it down into three? And although that particular council does have minimum land sizes, they're also quite open to you proving to them that you can create a pretty nice development by going smaller than that. And because of that, I was able to get through what is now going to be a 3-dwelling development, existing house remains. Then I add 2 to the back, and they're both 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom houses that will go into the back with plenty of side access, as long as you provided the right amount of visitor spaces and garages and that sort of thing. And I think this is what we need, because all of a sudden I'm going to be adding 2 dwellings to the undersupply that this particular area is experiencing. And if they let everybody do that, suddenly we get supply happening really quickly, rather than relying on those bigger developers to have to buy big tracts of former farmland and then undertake a massive big selling campaign on the land and get it all sold off and then get all the building happening. We can actually achieve it in these small developments at a time by loosening up on the rules all around the country. And I think there's many states and many local council areas that need to start looking at this and toss out that whole minimum land size. As long as you can create a development and a house that someone will want to live in, that has room and amenity and is good looking, I don't see why we have to stick to these bigger land sizes. Let's be honest, people don't necessarily use those big backyards anymore. Life has changed, and it's time that planning rules caught up with that.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about planning rules, because there will be people listening that'll say, Well, hang on. The density is XYZ. How have you managed to actually talk around that and get an extra dwelling on the site? It is in Adelaide. They've looked at it and they've said, right, okay, we're happy with the way that looks. So there's flexibility. I think so many people just look at the numbers and say, well, that is what it is. And if they can't sort of make it work in those parameters, then they just give up.
That's right. And, it is all about being able to go for it with council. There's policy, but there's always out of policy decisions that can be made. And many of them are based on precedent. We had another development in Adelaide where we wanted to cut off a backyard and build a second dwelling. And we were told by the council that we couldn't do it because we would end up with a 5% undersized block on one of the blocks. It's 5%, which meant nothing really. We were still able to show that we had the right amount of open space that they required, which incidentally was really more than people needed in the first place. And that particular council stuck to their guns. Well, we took them to the Land and Environment Court, and it didn't even cost us anything to do that. I didn't get a lawyer. I just lodged the application for $150. And by the time the hearing came around, I think the council realised that they were unlikely to win this one because I wasn't asking for anything unreasonable, and they backed off and let us do the development. So a lot of people, as you say, will give up very quickly and just go according to the letter of the law. But I can tell you now, I've had quite a number of developments approved that go outside of planning rules, but they get approved because I'm able to demonstrate that what I'm building is not an eyesore. It's not going to be some little box that, it's unfair for people to live in, that I've got plenty of amenity and landscaping and the entire thing is going to look good and not detract from the area. Then if you can do that, then often a council will listen to you.
We are your local source for unbiased, expert insights into the world of real estate. We are not a real estate company. Our only objective is to help you better understand the real estate market.
You participated recently in this Australasian Auctioneering Championship, which I found quite strange because you're not in a market where there's plenty of auction activity.
No, I think the statistics suggested 53 auctions were called in Tasmania last year. And if you're doing that as a full-time job, not enough to produce an income to support yourself, really. So I made the big move to the Big Smoke up in Victoria and Melbourne.
So tell us, before you actually made that move, what actually made you get into wanting to be an auctioneer? Because it's a real skill being an auctioneer. I think a lot of people just sort of take it for granted, but there is a lot of skill involved.
Absolutely. I think taking it back to when I was a teenager and even before that, I used to do busking, a little bit embarrassingly, as a magician on the streets at our Salamanca markets. And then throughout college, a long history of theatre and performing arts. So it's the perfect marriage of real estate and performing arts, really. So that's what started my obsession with it. There was a number of people that pointed me in the right direction in Tasmania. But as far as good coaches, they were really all came out of the interstate and from New Zealand as well.
So tell us, leading into this competition, you were training with a guy who's AKA the human calculator, drilling down on the numbers because you've got to be thinking of those numbers with accuracy and also speed, and you're doing those two things under pressure. So I can imagine, why not get some training here from somebody that's really good at it? I was just saying to you off air, I was hopeless at maths at school because the calculator, just use the calculator. You can't do that because you're running so hot in an auction.
The human calculator, it's a name that's been passed on from a number of people. Originally, my first auction coach, which was Harry Lee, he won the competition back in 2015. He was known as the human calculator. And then his prodigy, Luke Benitiosis, who won the competition last year, was the human calculator. And now that's been passed on to Greg Bryden, who is my training partner up here in Victoria. So it's a number of techniques, but it really comes down to repetition. So we were training the couple of weeks leading up to it at least once a day, and if not multiple times a day, either in person, over Zoom, and also through applications like an app called Mental Maths, which is just aimed at high school students to improve their addition skills. But for Auctioneer, it's kind of our secret tool.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning that you were a magician before you got into real estate. What is your best magical illusionary trick?
Oh, I used to do a card trick where I'd make all the cards disappear very quickly, and then one of the cards would appear in a participant's pocket. So that always used to get a good laugh when it worked. When it didn't, it was very embarrassing for a 12-year-old Jack.
I've got a card trick which it works every time. You'll know how you do this. So you spread the cards open, they're facing the person in front of you. You say to the person, right, memorize one of those cards. If you've got somebody sitting next to them, you say, right, tell them what the card is. Clarify with that person that the card is there, then close it. Then put your hands behind your back and then bring out 4 cards and spread them and say, is one of those cards yours? You know this trick?
No, I haven't heard of it.
You don't know this trick? I'll talk to you about it afterwards, all right?
A magician never reveals his secret.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.